Yeah. Man, forget this job, dog. Yeah. Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make this clear. First thing I'ma drink is a reignited beer. I ain't no lush, shut up.
Hello, it's Adam Morrison. When it comes to top-tier contracting, my go-to choice is McGillivray Environmental. I know a thing or two about excellence, and that's exactly what you'll find with Kip McGillivray and his team. They're not just any contractor, they're the best in Spokane and North Idaho. From start to finish, they ensure your project is completed with the highest quality results. With years of experience and expertise, they handle it all. New construction, meticulous repairs, asphalt paving for residential and commercial properties, excavation, and even environmental remediation. So why wait? Reach out to Kip McGillivray Environmental today by calling 208-556-6384 for your free estimate. Don't forget to mention my name, Adam Morrison, and experience the difference McGillivray Environmental brings to the table. Again, that's 208-556-6384, McGillivray Environmental. My number one choice for all my contracting needs.
The podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe.
Yeah. Man, forget this job, dog. Yeah. Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make this clear. First thing.
Welcome to The Perimeter, Season 4, Episode 15, presented by McGillivray Environmental, sponsored by Idaho Central Credit Union. Interesting week. We have a good recap of the Washington State game, which had a lot of juice to it in the McCarthy Athletic Center. And then we have two kind of upper tier games for the West Coast Conference standpoint, with Oregon State, who's 65 in the net, and Santa Clara is 70 in the net. And I have an explanation on quad 1, quad 2. I'll talk about that, what that means. So they definitely are quad 1, quad 2 type of chances. Mm-hmm. So it was a great week for Gonzaga. I thought we had great energy in the kennel. I'll talk about the students being there. But it was an interesting game going into the Washington State. San Diego, I'll talk about it for 2 minutes. We won. That was it. There's my 2 minutes. Not even that. 2 seconds. But it was nice having the students back. But then the old rivalry, the 151st meeting, which is kind of crazy to think. First game was played in 1907. Didn't even know that. But we haven't played them since 2015. Yeah. Which is a long time, obviously almost a decade. And so I think it was, you call it a rivalry, but it hasn't been, it's been a decade, obviously. So it was kind of odd in that standpoint. But then there's such familiarity with the fans locally. And like I talked about in the last episode, and I think it's true, I think a lot of their fans are football, and then they migrated to us because they live in Spokane. And but then once the basketball team started becoming a little bit better, they migrated back over. And so there's a little bit of a tension there. And the game was kind of chippy, which was cool because you don't see that as much as I'd like to see it just overall in basketball, college basketball. So having the students there provided an energy. It was nice for them to be back. We didn't play a game. The last time we had them in there was the Long Beach State game. That was in November, which is crazy. Just like this year's like travel schedule in general has been really odd. We've had, we had that Murderers Row where we didn't have any games in between. You know what I mean? So it's been a weird year as far as scheduling home games. With the conference, we went to LA, flew home for a game, then went back. You know what I'm saying? Then we're doing the same thing. We're going to Corvallis coming up, flying home, and then we're going to Portland again the next week. It's like, well, why the hell don't we just play Oregon State and Portland in the same bleeping trip? Yeah. And anyway,
I was going to say that we only have one more back-to-back home games, and that's against San Francisco and Pepperdine in February.
Yeah, it's been a really bad, from the West Coast Conference standpoint, scheduling, in my opinion. It's been terrible. It's a strain on budgets. It's a strain on the girls' side of budgets. I don't care what anybody says. They don't make as much money as the men's programs. That's just a fact. And so to have them hop on planes and especially commercial ones that have to rebook all those and then rebook hotels. It just doesn't make sense. And then also I went into the, kind of poking fun, not poking fun, but kind of being honest. Like, all these universities want to talk about taking care of the environment. God bless you. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. Then why are we doing extra flights then? If you really believe in that as the West Coast Conference. So there's my short little rant on the travel schedule. Because if you think about it, some teams have to play, they came up here and then they go back home and then they come up again to play Washington State. It's the same thing. They're just like, well, why wouldn't we just play them both, stay at the Davenport Grand for 4 days?
Yeah. That's
what the teams do, and then drive to Pullman for the hour and a half drive and then play here. You know what I mean? It just doesn't, it just doesn't make sense. Get back to the game. Chippiness at the start. I thought David Riley's done an excellent job. Washington State came in 13-4, but had a weird loss against Pacific in overtime down in Pullman. When I think it felt like, just reading the box score, that it was a look-ahead game, right? They were looking forward to ours. And Pacific is bad. I'm just being honest. Like, what's their net? Let me look it up real quick. Like, they're in the 250s and above. Like, just not very good at all. And, it happens all the time in our conference. And it's kind of funny. Like, BYU used to always lose to Pepperdine every year.
Yeah. Their net is 300.
Okay, exactly. So they're bad.
Yeah.
And, so you look at that box score and they lost by 1 in overtime. And, you just wonder if they looked ahead. You got to give some a little bit of context. Washington State was missing their leading scorers out for an injury, and then a second leading scorer, or tops double-figure scorers is what I'm trying to say. So they've had kind of an injury bug. They're playing guys that they probably wouldn't play meaningful minutes, and that's not a knock. But the walk-on kid coming off the bench, and then the kid from Lap Away is probably a year away. Great story. Went to Lap Away. Idaho's all-time leading scorer, like 3,600 points in high school, average like 36, like good player. I'm just saying he's probably a year away from being like super productive. That's not a knock, but it's just the injury type of deal. The seniors and juniors are going to play.
Yeah.
And so, seeing their roster personnel, you knew they were down a little bit, but you knew they had enough in the bank. I like the Watts kid. I thought Calmise was good. Price, who came in, I think the first 3 out of 4 games in the West Coast Conference. Yeah, he had 20 plus points. We did an excellent job on him. First half was a little bit slow. They were playing to their pace. I thought David Riley did an excellent job on the scheme. I think UConn did it, and I know UCLA did it, where if you watched the game or listened, every time they scored, or even on rebounds, Nembhard got full court pressed. Face guard, I like that strategy. I use it a lot on the girls' side when I coach my daughter's teams. Take away their best ball handler, their best player. Doesn't mean anybody else can't ball handle, but when it's not in your primary ball handler's hands, the flow messes up just a little bit. And I thought early and often we just weren't in a great flow. And so I thought it was a tip to cap to David Riley as the coach. Like, that's a tremendous, strategy, but also it can lead you to fatigue. Calmise is one of their best players. He ended up having a good game, but you can fatigue yourself out. But that in that first half, it was just, a lot of slow, methodical. If you look just at the box score, the numbers would tell you different, but there was not really a great flow to it until about the last 6 minutes. And then both teams made 5 threes in a row, not counting together 3 and 2, right? But it was back and forth. Washington State goes 15 of 27, that's 56%, 5 of 11 from downtown, and then 2 of 5 from the free throw line. We go 15 of 33, 45%, but matched field goals, right? Which is fine. 5 of 12, same thing, matched makes, and then 5 of 6 from the free throw line. We kind of made our run late in that first half, like I said, under 6 minutes, and what's his name? Caleb Battle had a nice finish at the end to put us up 3, but you were at the game, obviously. Did you? I I knew we were up. I was like, man, we didn't play very good. Yeah. And I kind of was like, good job, Washington State. That was really good defense and plan, and there was some chippiness to it. So I thought they did a good job in the first half. What were your thoughts?
I thought they played great. I mean, I thought it was very, very, like you said, chippy. There's a lot of energy in the building, which was awesome. It felt great to have the Kennel Club back.
Definitely.
But yeah, it was. You know what really stood out to me was how the press happened. We had a couple of passes in where they just stole it and they just did a layup. I mean, they were really in Gonzaga's pocket at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because it wasn't just Nemhard. He was the jam. They call it jam or full court or whatever. But then they were full courts. Pressing us as well in certain spots, and you just don't see that as far as man-to-man full court press. You see a 30 we call a 1-2-2. A lot of teams run a 1-2-2. It's kind of your basic set, and it's kind of your easiest way to guard at this level. But you never really see just full court man, and so it kind of took us out of our rhythm. And I like that strategy against us just because our flow game is so good. Late break, DHOs, and our sprint up ball screens, all that stuff that we call it wave and flow. I think David Riley had a really good plan. But again, if you're him and you look at the first half, you're like, man, we played really good and we're down 3. Yeah. Dang it. And so I thought, Nolan was terrific in the first half, goes 3 of 5 from downtown. Graham was terrific, 4-7, has 10 points. Ben Gregg was terrific, has 6. Caleb Battle got it going late. I think he missed his first 4 shots, but ended up having 7, 3 of 8, so he picked it up towards the end. Knocked down a 3 in that first half, and then Dusty was terrific at 8 points. Yeah. Made a 3 and then made a pull-up jumper, but then was 3 of 4 from the free throw line. But he's gotten better in the last 5-6 games of not just shooting catch and shoot threes. He's putting on the deck a little bit and getting to the paint and making those, and that's going to open up his game for him. And hopefully he continues to develop that, so going into next season he can score 6 points from the two-point range, not just 3 or dunk. Yeah. So I thought he was terrific, had a great energy about him, was flying around. And it was interesting, just like I said, our flow wasn't great. We were -3 on the glass. We only had 7 assists to their 12. Only 6 turnovers for us. They had 12 turnovers. So I thought our defense was good. But going up 3, I'm like, man, it doesn't feel like we should be up 3 right now. I thought their energy was a little bit better. Not like we were lax. It's just their scheme and their defensive pressure was really good. Also, it goes to show you, though, our culture and our personnel and our base stuff allows us to not play great and doesn't have to always be perfect for us to build a lead, right? And to keep sawing wood and all the cliche stuff. So going into the second half, I was really curious, and I've talked about it recently at length, is how shitty our either opening half has been or second half. One or the two has been really bad. And it was the total opposite. Our guys were terrific going in. I think we go on an 8-0 run. Yeah, we go on an 8-0 run to start the second half, and it was a 5-0, so 13-0 counting the first, right, if you count the end of the first. But so a 13-0 run to really kind of not completely take control of the game, but get some exhale a little bit and get the crowd into it. And our guys kind of started to run, and Ryan got the ball off the glass, or he got quick outlets, and he could get into the flow stuff. And he ended up having a pretty good game considering, he didn't get the ball much in the first half. He had foul trouble as well. He had 9 points, 4 for 8, 5 assists, 3 turnovers. Not his best game, but not terrible. And still found a way to get to his numbers. Nolan Hickman, who was terrific, at 19 points on 7 of 10, 5 of 8 from downtown, and then 7 rebounds. I think that was career high, which is also terrific. We flipped the rebounding. Like I said, we were -3. We can go +3 for the game, so obviously +6 in the second half, which is huge. It kind of turned the tide. Graham was terrific, 21 points, 8 of 11, 5 of 5, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a block, 1 steal. He was great inside, really slowed down. I was a little bit concerned going in, as I knew this game was going to be chippy. Like I said, we haven't played each other in a decade, but you just knew, you could see David Riley's new on the block. he was great at Eastern, been on that Shantae Liggins staff. You know what I mean? So, like, there's been a lot of, like, we've never played him. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I knew the style of play. Like, he had a blueprint of how to, quote unquote, beat Gonzaga because he's coached under a lot of guys who've faced him, is what I'm trying to get at. So I knew it was going to be physical, and that's what a lot of teams try to do. And I get it. If you're undermatched personnel-wise, you try to beat people up or knock them off their line, not in a cheap way, but just disrupt the flow. I mean, we're good a flow offense. So that was curious to, understand how Graham would react to that. Because there's a couple times during the year, not just this year in general, part of his gift is, the passion that he plays with, and, he's kind of a, push you first type of guy, but then that's part of his problem, right? And he can get taken out of his game a little bit. And so it's always like teetering on the edge. And I played the same way, where it's like, don't talk trash to me, but if you do, it might work because I might get out of my game, but then also like you might piss me off and I might play better. So it's like you got to make sure you're on the right side of that. And I thought he did a good job of kind of keeping his cool and understand that, because him and Watts were talking trash. The Okafor kid was talking to him a little bit, who actually had a really good game. And I thought Graham just in totality really kept his cool and delivered for us inside. Caleb Battle has 10 points, didn't shoot it well, still gave us great energy. Ben Gregg was terrific with 11 points and 9 rebounds, 5 of 9 from the field. Braden Huff with his usual 4 for 4, 10 points, played less than 10 minutes, which was interesting. But again, it's the same story, and it's not me trying to start stuff. It's just sometimes Graham's rolling, and it's personnel-wise, and then it's happened to Graham as well, and Braden's rolling. So it's just the short end of the stick. But he gets just 10 points and 4 for 4 from the field. Dusty had 8, didn't score in the second half, but I thought his energy was terrific. Plus his plus minus was +8. So overall, the second half was terrific. We shot the ball better, go 19 of 28, 60. That's 68%. 5 of 9 from 3. That's terrific. So we go 10 for 21 from 3. It's obviously awesome, 47%, and then 10 for 13 from the free throw line. They go 32 of 60, 53%, and they make 8 out of 21 threes. 38's good. I always talk about if you're above 35, you want to be in the 40s, but if you're above 35 with volume as a team, it's good. So if you just look at the box score, then the game, other than that, probably like 13-minute to like the 6-minute mark in the first half, it's a pretty clean basketball game. You know what I mean? From just a neutral standpoint.
Absolutely. We
had a great run. That 40-foot, 60-foot pass that Ryan made to Braden for the end one was one of the better passes of the season. It was, like I said, it was nice. The crowd was into it, having our fans. And then it was kind of a good, and I mean this in the most respectful way, but kind of reminder like, hey, this is our sport up here. You know what I mean? And obviously we're going to play them 2 times a year forever.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future. Yeah,
for the foreseeable future. So, I think it's going to be a budding rivalry, but it got chippy in a good way, and I think that's great for the area because David Riley's a good coach, Kyle Smith was a good coach, and they're trying to build something, and it's more fun when Eastern's good and Washington State's good and all those things, not just in football and stuff and basketball. So overall, Gonzaga does a good job, wins by 13. It was funny at the end of the game, and I know I don't talk about this much on the podcast, but I always look at just what the line is, and it was 17.5, and it was at 19, and then they go on like a 6-0 run real quick.
Yeah, it was. I was sitting up there in the press booth. We were talking about earlier, and
it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it was funny that it happened.
somebody threw up, and then somebody celebrated. You know what I mean? It's just always funny because you're like, as the game was progressing, especially the first half, I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, Washington State's definitely going to cover this one. And then we get up 20.
Yeah.
And you're like, God, Vegas is so good. You know what I mean? You're just like, God, they're so good. Like, it's unbelievable how good they are. Obviously, that's why they have casinos in the desert, right? Like, but it's crazy. But anyway, that stuff matters to me at the end of games because I think it's funny in a sense that, when they put in June and Joe Few and the other walk-on kids, and like the number, and it's teetering right there, and it can go either way, and you're like, that's when it's like that's why I don't sports bet, because I think it's just insanity that you would get to 39 minutes and then it all depends on like 4 plays with the walk-ons. No disrespect.
Absolutely.
Whether you win or not. Like, it's crazy. That's why college basketball is like terrible to bet on anyway. So, yeah, great win for us. And they were top 75 in the net. I think they're going to have a good season. They got to avoid the injury bug. I said, I think they're a good basketball team. The Pacific one was a head scratcher, but it does happen every time in this league. And Huddy said it, and he was talking to, I think, their radio people, because they were like, how did we lose the Pacific? He's like, dude, BYU used to lose to Pepperdine like every single year. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And Pepperdine used to be like in the 250s and above, and you're like, how? And then it's just one of those deals. Like, this league is weird, man. Yeah. Like, somebody will lose to one of these weird teams. So
I was going to ask you about WSU's strategy of, they just went so hard. And the perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
It's time for Home Team Rewards. Zag fans, get your Bulldog branded ICCU Premier Rewards Visa credit card, the only card where you can earn rewards for everyday purchases while giving back to Gonzaga University. Choose from a Visa Rewards card with a lower rate or a Premier Rewards card with maximum rewards. With no annual fees, card control, and next-level security, you can spend smart from tap to app. Zags, rejoice! Find your card at iccu.com/gozags on approved credit.
Somebody will lose to one of these weird teams. So
I was going to ask you about WSU's strategy of, they just went so hard. And
that's a good point.
One thing I text my brother and I said, there's no way that that WSU's going to be able to keep this up. And they weren't. Like, did you think, knowing that they didn't have a very deep bench, like that seems like a very, like, that strategy seems like
it's difficult because, and honestly, I said it on the air right coming into the second half. I said, can they have the same type of energy that they had in the first half?
Yeah,
and I was leaning towards no, not just saying that because it happened, but it was just depth. It's hard because personnel-wise, we have a better roster, and they'd probably say the same thing. Doesn't mean they have shitty players. They got good guys that could be all league. They really do. Calmise is good. I think the Watts kid was freshman of the year last year in the Big Sky. He can play.
Yeah.
The Price kid, I just mentioned him. He didn't have a great game, but he can play. So like they have a legit like NCAA tournament type of roster with size, good enough scoring on the perimeter. But when you have no depth, like playing full court and then kind of like going crazy on defense the entire game, you're going to, kind of get, what's the old fighters term? Like take them out to deep water, like first 4 rounds, like you just wait for a guy to punch him out and then here we go. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8, you knock them out or whatever, you score all your points. That's what it kind of felt like.
Definitely.
And so I think it wasn't bad by their guys because what do you do? Tell them not to play hard the first 20 minutes? That's the other part. I get what you're saying. I know it's so hard, but how do you try to conserve, but then also your strategy is picking up full, and that does take a while, a lot of energy out, and it's different compared to high school than to college. Like in college, the reason why you don't see it because guys are so good, and you can throw 40-foot passes and bing bing get a wide open shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, no, let's just get in the half court and play good defense, or we go man or a 1-2-2 press for like 3 possessions and we're done, right? Because it usually beat it. So yeah, I thought it was the right strategy, but the hard to implore the whole game, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
personnel wise and fatigue wise. But again, I think Washington State's a great program. It's going to move up. It's going to continue to get better. It's great for our area. It's going to be great for our league. All those things are true. I love the chippiness, but it's also nice to be like, yep, basketball's our deal.
Yeah. Would you say like WSU has like little brother syndrome with Gonzaga?
That'd be a fair. I think so, because there's so many. Obviously there's so many alumni here.
Yeah,
and there's not a lot of Gonzaga alumni.
Right.
If you're being honest, like it's a smaller school. It's just in general, it's academically harder to get into, and that's not a knock. But it's the truth. Private Jesuit versus a state school. That's for anything. Cost, all that stuff. So just a smaller alumni base. So I think constantly hearing about us probably is annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And But they made the NCAA tournament last year, so it's not like they've been like terrible, but it's been farther stretches obviously compared to Gonzaga.
Yeah.
So I think there's got to be some of that, right?
There has to be. I live in Washington, in Spokane, obviously. I don't know. I know what WSU fans, but they're never very vocal until you play them.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, it's one of those deals because, like I said, I kind of root for them in football.
Yeah,
I really do. Like I'll be like, oh, Wazoo's good this year, and let's check them out. You know what I mean? But then if they go 7-5, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But it's cool when they're like 9-3. But it was cool when like Leach was there because he was kind of a nut job in a good way, and he made him relevant. And I don't know why they ran him out of town. There was my rant on that either. Like he made you guys relevant, and he won a lot of games. Yeah. So I know he was weird at the podium, but who cares? Like he could coach anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think. I hate the term little brother because it sounds disrespectful, but I mean, just maybe overlooked in their eyes. Don't you think? Like,
absolutely.
From the local media, not in a bad way, but, whatever clicks and all that stuff, whatever sells papers or whatever.
Yeah.
Gonzaga basketball is one of those. And then football for them is one of them. So, I don't know. He has a chance. I think Dave O'Reilly's a terrific young coach. Like, honestly, I've known him, I kind of known him from his Whitworth days. And he's been around Hayford and then Shantae Liggins and then obviously Kyle Smith that took over. You know what I'm saying? So or took over for Kyle Smith. And so he's done a good job. He knows what he's doing. It's just going to be the same old question for all WSU coaches. Can you recruit? Can you get guys to come there? And then it's going to be a question for any school that's not like Texas or Ohio State or whatever's NIL. How's that going to affect your program? So that time will only tell on that, but I think he's headed in the right direction. They run the right stuff. He's got good players, but again, it's such a year-to-year thing.
Yeah.
Now, like what if Watts goes bonkers or something, and then somebody a bigger conference or whatever? I know it's not a terrible. We're not like in a small conference, but somebody calls him and is like, "Hey, do you want to come play here for $400,000?" And what the fuck does he do then?
That is the world we live in now, for sure.
Exactly. So it's sad in my opinion. I think it's unfair, but it's the world that we live in. So, you got bracketology on here. We're going to talk about that.
I wanted to mention it in the.
Where they have us out?
They have it out. Like, they start doing bracketology like at the beginning of the year, and so I just thought I brought it up because I wanted to kind of see where we're at, and since we were where we were at in the bracketology, we were a number 5 seed in
that makes sense.
The West, and if we were to win, we would face Kentucky in the second round.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
And that was like. And I don't, it was a 5 seed in Seattle. So,
okay.
So it would be a long way to go.
Yeah, we do. Obviously, I think 5 makes sense on the line if you're looking at quad 1, quad 2s. We could probably get up to a 3 if we kind of run the table. All right, I mentioned it earlier. Yeah. Quad 1, quad 2. So quad 1, and this is not exactly perfect, but it's a better understanding for the listeners as well. If they're in the top, I believe 75 or 80, if you play them at their place and you get a road win, it turns into a quad 1. If you play them at at your place and you win, it turns into a quad 2. Now, I think if they're in the top 30, it's a quad 1 no matter what. Is kind of what I've been explained to.
Okay.
So again, these games where they're in the top 100 or whatever, they could turn into quad 1s if the team turns in, gets higher rated or whatever. But it matters where the win came from, on your floor or theirs.
Yeah.
But quad 2s are still good wins. And the reason why we keep talking about that, we haven't had teams with, what did we say, 6 teams in the top 75, counting us in the WCC. That hasn't happened in probably in the 5 years ago when San Francisco got the third at-large bid, when we got 3 teams in that one year. So it's a better league, and I know we're not just, and I'm not just saying to pump it up. It's like the numbers say it. So going into the bracketology stuff, we could, if we play really good, and let's say we go 14-1 or 15, whatever the number of games we play, and got a bunch of quad 2s and then a few sprinkled in quad 1s, like we could move up to a 3.
Absolutely.
In numbers wise. But I don't think we're obviously not in line to be a number 1 or probably not a number 2, which is fine. And a lot of people understand this. It depends on your draw. I mean, seeds are nice, and that's true. But it's your draw that makes sense. But it'd be cool to be in Seattle.
It would be cool to be in Seattle.
It'd be really nice. And even though we have, is it really? Because we haven't won there.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like, you kind of start thinking,
and
shit.
against Kentucky too.
Yeah,
if it fell that way,
let's go to Albuquerque where the other spots are. So anyway.
Oregon State. I wanted to mention Oregon State. I mean, this week's kind of big just because Oregon State's could be a quad 2 win, and then Santa Clara is very good this year.
Yep.
Oregon State. I listened to Mark Few and heard him talking about the team. This team is humongous. They have a 6'7" guy, or they have 2 7-footers.
Yep.
They have a 6'10", 6'11". I don't know how many of these guys play. I'm looking at the stats, but they're a big team.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Tinkle's done a good job of kind of revamping this program. And they're 13-5 this year. They got 3 guys, almost 4, that average double figures, and you're just talking about the size and length. So it'll be curious how they play us inside.
Yeah.
I talk about it all the time on our broadcasts, and I'll say it here on this, podcast. When you're watching the games, if you're in tune to kind of strategy, watch how teams guard us one-on-one inside when on the first or second catch of the game. When Graham gets the ball, and like Washington State was double teaming from the bottom side, and it made it, we kind of got us out of our rhythm to start the game. But sometimes teams will go, straight up man coverage, just single on single, and that can make it more difficult because if Graham, then sometimes it turns into one and dones because if he does miss, or Braden, you're not getting skip 3s or anything like that. So like, let me explain it further. So like Washington State goes, all right, we can't foul because we don't have the personnel. And, we only have 3 bigs really essentially to play Braden and Graham inside, so we're going to double team. Well, what does Gonzaga do? Go 10 for 21 from 3 or whatever it was, or 12 or whatever the heck the number was, right? And so if you don't have to double team, you sometimes give up those swing, those skips, and those wide opens. But then if you are shitty single coverage, then Graham or Braden can probably go 35 points combined, 40 points combined. So you kind of have to pick your poison a little bit.
Yeah.
So my point is, like a game like Oregon State, if they have that type of size, sometimes teams still double team. It's not just completely on size because a coach has to pick, what do we want to give away? And so it'll be curious. So if you're watching the game early, the people listening, see how teams, I always look how they guard us in the post. And it's not always a double team, there's certain double teams. There's a double team from the bottom side. There's a double team from the middle. There's a big to big. There's a double team, they call it white, is what I've always been described as. You double team off sometimes the first side or the shittiest player, no matter where he is on the floor. So there's like 5 or 6 ways you can double team. And then the same thing with ball screen coverages. Are they going underneath on them hard? Are they trying to go over the top and then plugging with their big, so they take away the short roll, like Braden catches short rolls, can score. So when games start, if you're kind of a basketball person, it doesn't mean you have to be like crazy analytical. Just watch how they guard people inside and watch how they do the ball screen coverage. Then you can kind of see how the flow of the game theoretically will go. Great teams have multiple coverages, have a double team package, have a counter package, and then ball screen coverage, you got to be able to guard at least four ways, in my opinion, at any level.
Yeah.
Girls, boys, doesn't matter. In my opinion, high school and up, I think if you should be able to guard all what's different ways, and then you can take away certain strengths of certain players. If there's a kid that can shoot. If they go underneath, you go over the top and you plug. If they'd like to pick and pop, then you tell your guard, okay, get over the top, and we're just going to stay with the big, right? You know what I mean? And then help from maybe the weak side, the low hole is what they call it. So there's a lot of things you can watch, especially with like a huge team, like you said, with Oregon State. Watch how they first catch, how they're going to double team Graham.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, when you talk about those defensive packages, like when teams play Gonzaga, are they switching their defensive packages at the start of the game, like constantly, or is it like they're showing you one thing and then they switch?
I think you have a plan A and a plan B, and then maybe obviously a plan C, but you have all this stuff built in, and then you kind of see what works. And sometimes, you have to. I think good coaches and good staffs stick with a plan, and they use it off of what they've seen on tape and a little bit of analytics, but they don't freak out if it doesn't work out right away. Because sometimes a kid like Ben Gregg, for example, okay, he's had 9 made threes this season. If you look at his numbers, he's like 22%, 23%. Is he a way better shooter than that? Yeah, because he didn't make a 3 until the Bahamas.
Right.
But if you're looking at his numbers and you watch film, you probably go, fuck it, let's back off him. Remember, some teams did that, and he went 3 for 7. I can't remember who did it. It was a couple games ago. He goes 3 for 7.
Yeah.
So then, but you got to be able to sit there and go, we're believing in this. Do you get what I'm saying? He went 3 for 3 the other night.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So my point is, like, sometimes you'd be like, okay, we know a guy can't shoot. He's point guard. We're going to go underneath. And maybe he hits a 18-footer underneath the ball screen. You still got to stick with it.
Like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of teams that are good will stick to that game plan, but then you got to have a plan B. But Washington State switched most actions, and then they fronted in the post with their smalls. We did the same thing. It was kind of interesting because Caleb Battle started on that. What was that kid's name? The big kid with the blonde hair. What was his name? Let's see. I'm looking for the box.
Is
here.
it Dane Eric Strip? No.
Yeah, it was Eric Strip. Yep, it was Eric Strip. So, like, because we wanted to take Price's pick and pop threes because he was a 40% 3-point shooter, and 42% of his shots were from 3, so high volume. So we put Ben Gregg on him to go pick and pop, but then we put Graham was guarding the other big, right? And then they had kind of a mismatch in theory. So that's remember they got tangled up a couple times early because they were battling and we were going full front with help on the backside. So my point is, long-winded answer, I know, is you got to come in with a strategy and a game plan, but some of your core basic stuff defensively has to be put in right away, like at the start of the year, and you should have that. So you can do different things. Downhill switch, switch all actions. You can plug. You can go over the top. All those things matter in this level of basketball. Like, my advice on the girls' side and on the boys' side when I coach and I tell younger players that want to play at the Division I level, you got to kind of know this stuff your senior year of high school. You got to learn it. If your coach is not teaching you, you got to at least be familiar with it. Because if you can't do it at the next level, you won't play. It's just you can't survive. Maybe you'll play a little bit, but a coach, if you're high-level team, high-level program, you have to be able to make adjustments on the fly, and it should be built in. You should be able to go to a timeout or even like a dead ball and just yell out a different ball screen coverage, right? If you're worth it, if you're worth anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty intricate. Sometimes I know basketball can be a simple game, but the strategy behind defensively is more layered than people think, and sometimes teams score off of things, and you're like, well, why'd that guy do that? It's like, well, because his coach tell him to go underneath. Well, why would you do that? It's, well, the guy's shooting 41%. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you have to, like, understand the player is doing what his coach is telling him to do. And it may look dumb at the time, but, okay, we're playing the numbers, and sometimes guys hit shots.
Absolutely.
And it is what it is. Got any listener questions?
We do. And this is actually, I wanted to...
The Perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor.
It's time for Home Team Rewards. Zag fans, get your Bulldog branded ICCU Premier Rewards Visa credit card, the only card where you can earn rewards for everyday purchases while giving back to Gonzaga University. Choose from a Visa Rewards card with a lower rate or a Premier Rewards card with maximum rewards. With no annual fees, card control, and next-level security, you can spend smart from tap to app. Zags, rejoice! Find your card at iccu.com/gozags on approved credit.
Shots.
Absolutely.
It is what it is. Got any listener questions?
We do. And this is actually, I wanted to shout this one out because I heard this a lot this week. I'm surprised, this is from Vic, I'm surprised that they didn't have the Wazoo game at the arena to accommodate all those Cougs. And I heard this a lot from other people this week. Why wasn't this game played at the arena? And my first thought was, there's no way they'd play this game at the arena because then it would become it could become a home game for the Cougs.
Yeah, I don't think that would be necessary. And then also, like, you guys are going to get your home game and your deal, and,
right?
So yeah, I doubt we would ever do that because we want a home court advantage.
Yeah.
And I was looking around and I was trying to think, all right, when I saw people in Coug gear, and I get it, cheer for your own team, but I'm all like, are those your season tickets? Because then I want to be like, are you really like a Coug fan in
disguise?
In disguise, you know what I mean? I'm like, you jump ship that quick, so you know what I mean? Anyway,
yeah.
So I saw a couple fans. I kept going like, have I seen them in that seat before? You know what I mean? And they're wearing like Coug stuff. And God bless you. I don't hate the Cougs, but it was also, like I said, it was chippy, and it was cool to have that energy back because it was chippy when I played them.
Yeah.
We played my freshman year. We blew them out. Corey Violet had 31. I had 17 as a freshman. And then we played them down there, and we won 54-52. They missed a 3 at the buzzer, and we shouldn't have won that game. And it was chippy down there. Their fans are bad.
Yeah.
And I didn't play great that game. I think I had 12, and I missed a free throw to go up 3. So we got lucky that they rimmed out a 3-point attempt. And then my junior year, I had 25. And the only reason I know this because I had to do an interview with KHQ before. The guy reminded me, was like, "Oh, thanks." And we won by 16, but it was the Dick Bennett era, and they played really slow. Like Tony was play slow. The former coach at Virginia was obviously there and had great years. They played even slower. So, like I said, 54-52. Like, oh my God, that type of deal. So. It's fun to get back to rivalry, though.
It definitely is. This is from Gavin on YouTube, and we kind of saw this a couple times this week. And he asks, why won't few play Graham and Braden at the same time for some stretches? Is the offensive system so strict that it won't allow it, or would they both be impeding on each other, like out of place in the flow of the game?
That's a good question. I've thought about it as well as maybe it happened randomly when Ajayi was sick. It was San Diego. So they did it for a stretch. It didn't look out of place. I just think they're both kind of the similar players, body type and movement type. I think Braden's a little bit more fluid. Graham's more of a bruiser. They both get great touch, all that stuff. And then, I don't know, because then you're sitting there going, well, Ben's got does Ben not play? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that question is I think, terrific. But if we didn't have the personnel behind it, then it would make more sense. Like, why can't they both play together? But we have Ajayi, Ben Gregg. You can mix in Dusty at that 3-4 spot in certain spots, right? You get what I'm saying? So I think it's a terrific question. I don't think it's bad, but I think it's a personnel issue. Not issue is the wrong word, just personnel deal.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense. But also, if you're being fair, like Braden Huff only plays less than 10 minutes the other night, and 4 for 4. That. So I think that the listener is trying to, the listener question is trying to say, why can't we get them both on the floor a little bit more, especially Braden? Can
Braden play in the 4? Like, I mean, we've seen it.
I think so. Yeah, he can pick and pop. I think and he's fluid enough. I think so. But Ben Gregg just has had such a good stretch here, and he's a senior, and he's earned all that, and just played terrific, blah, 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 like he really has. He had his stretch there where I think it was like 5 out of 7 games he was in double figures, and he just had a 20-point game. Then he gives us, 11 or whatever I said it was in this last game. So, yeah he's been terrific, and it's hard to take an energy. It's the energy part too. It's not just the scoring for him. The energy that he provides.
Yeah, there's even the WSU game. Like he's constantly just disrupting on the court, and he brings up a level of like this passion to the team that is like you can't. Kind of
the flexing and all that shit. Like I love it, and it's funny to me, but it's just a different era. But it gets everybody going, and all those things. So. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. We're going to be back next week, recapping these games and looking ahead. Gonzaga off to a great start in West Coast Conference play. Tough week, though. Like I said, 2 teams in the top 75 in the net. That matters. Quad 1, Quad 2 wins. Thank you to McGillivray Environmental and Idaho Central Credit Union. Tune in next week.
Working this graveyard shift, I hate it. 6 in the morning, I'm off, I made it. When I get home, I'ma make this clear. First thing I'ma drink is a Rainier beer. I ain't no lush, shut up, hush. This is how I zone out. I'ma take this check, put it on me. I'm a much better boss than an employee. Just cause you got time, don't waste time. It's about time, feel the sunshine. You got time, but don't waste time. It's go time. Employee, I'm an employee cause I go OD on a BEAT. I'm a young OG, been killing these raps since 03. So when a supervisor told me do this, do that, I replied.
The podcast intro song is Get Up by Jinx Universe. Listen to his music on Spotify and follow him on social media at I am Jinx Universe. Produced locally in Spokane, Washington at Spocast. The Perimeter will be right back after a word from our sponsor.